Walter Wonkite. I'm already into the 420, damn it.
So what are you doing?
Nothing.
Nothing? Why not?
Trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, wait, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
The opinions expressed during this show are those of the individual participants and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of their associated organizations or Lifestyle Radio.
What's the matter with that cat there?
Must be full of reefer.
Full of reefers?
Yeah, man.
Mean that cat's high?
Sailing.
Sailing?
Lightly.
We now wander off the beaten path with an update from the Reefer Reporter.
Welcome to the Reefer Reporters. I'm Al Graham, and joining me today at the news desk is News Hawk, Northern Ontario, Kim Cooper. Today is September the 17th, and we're going to talk and discuss the previous week's cannabis news. Hello, Kim. How are you?
I'm pretty good, Al. I'm pretty much rested up after my whirlwind trip down south to Southern Ontario. It's been great having the time off, but I'm ready to get back to work.
Yes, well, we got lots of work today, but I haven't talked to you since the Karma Cup. Give us a quick, if it's possible, rundown.
Quick rundown. Okay, Karma Cup 2018, absolutely off the hook, best event of the year, hands down, no question. Over 10,000 people through the gates day one. Not sure on the numbers day two, but they had to be close just from the amount of people being there. I can attest to that for sure. Sarah Sunday, what a superhero. Oh my God. Fantastic woman in cannabis. She pulled off this event not only at one location, but 2 locations, tore it down, rebuilt it, and it was ready to go the next day. Super lady, a superhero in the business to make it, pull it all off and make it happen. Fantastic amount of vendors and products available. The sales were excellent at the last day, the final hours of the event. You could get medication at extremely low prices. I stocked up big time, and I am all set for meds till next year.
Yeah, I saw the picture of everything you brought home.
Yeah, I went a little crazy. But the prices, I mean, I couldn't resist, especially being in Northern Ontario. We're subject to a lot higher prices out here. If you go to like your local distributor or slash dealer, whatever you want to call them, you've got a markup on whatever they're purchasing over the internet. The other option is to buy it over the internet, pay shipping and handling, sales tax, and wait for 4 days for it to come in the mail. So I mean that's our situation here. So when you see stuff like 5 grams of award-winning shatter, you pick the brands, 5 of them for $100. You've got to buy it.
Ooh, $20. Wow.
Yeah. How do you not buy it? Of course I bought it. And as I said, I'm stocked up till next year.
That's good. That's good. I described the place as packed. Packed.
Yeah.
Just goes to shows there's lots of support.
Yeah, huge amounts of support for this plant and the things that are going on in the community, like events like the Karma Cup, the pop-up festivals, the pop-up markets. We visited several venues through our 5-day visit and tour down there, and every venue we went to was the same. They were packed. If there was a pop-up market somewhere, I mean, it was standing room only, elbow to elbow, shoulder to shoulder. People are just jam-packed in there looking at products and exploring entrepreneurialism in the cannabis market.
That's right. Hey, people are showing up in droves. They're there with their feet. They're there to spend their money. It's what they want. So hopefully they get that. So
yeah.
All right, Kim, on with the rest of the news.
Yeah, for sure.
Experiences to what we're seeing in the newspaper.
Yeah, it's been a busy week in the news for sure.
Sure has been. See, Health Canada, they made the announcement that the medical cannabis program will continue after legalization begins.
Yeah, a few doctors are not real happy about it. A few doctors are still supporting it. But Health Canada has taken a stand and said, yeah, we're going to be continuing the medical program that exists in Canada because a lot of patients were quite concerned.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Health Canada, as I said, they're going to continue the program, but they're going to review it within 5 years. Now, I can remember at one point there was talk about reviewing the designated grower program, but they're talking now about basically the whole program.
Yeah, the whole thing will be up for review. And I think that's largely because of some of the doctors that are speaking out. They're saying there isn't enough efficacy behind the plant, and they don't want to feel proper about prescribing it because it hasn't. They don't have the studies. I am entirely sick of hearing this from doctors. We've had and wanted them to do these studies and demanded they do these studies for over 25 years. Some doctors and some scientists have taken it up and done the studies in North America. For those that have done it, the studies are available out there. Take a look at the Public Med site. There's several hundred of them. If you're looking for other studies, let's just look beyond our borders. Take a look at Israel. You want studies? They have them.
They don't have the studies that they want in front of them.
Well, and North America's problem.
Yep. Well, according to the vice president of CMA, the Canadian Medical Association, he says that once legalization happens, that there's no reason for physicians to be involved with access. Well, yes, there is. You tell me you're going to have a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old who's taking cannabis for Dravettes, they're going to walk into a cannabis store?
Yeah, and I'm just going to go over the counter and buy whatever the buddy gives me. And if you're in Nova Scotia, you'll be buying your 2-year-old's medicine alongside with your grandfather's scotch.
Yeah. No, that's not what should happen.
Yeah.
No. Well, they say that they just figured that that's not needed anymore. But as I mentioned, you got the young ones, and then you got the patients who you come down to affordability. Patients can't always afford the cannabis, and they grow the cannabis to help with that reduced cost. And there's patients that obviously require more than just 4 plants.
Well, there's no way that 4 plants is covering anybody that I know's cannabis prescription. That's for damn sure. It wouldn't cover not even 1/8 of my prescription. So it won't work. In the grand scheme of things, the way it's laid out right now, it will not work. Yeah, they would have to completely deregulate the plant and remove all restrictions, all rules, and have it grown openly without any issue by all in order for them to remove it from the medical program. And even then, I don't think it's a good idea because, as you said, we've got people that are using this medicine that are youth. They want to have the following of their physician. This is the medicine I'm using every day. A physician should be following that progress. It shouldn't be left up to the patient to do on their own.
Well, the government says that Health Canada recognizes the concerns of the Canadian Medical Association regarding the level of evidence on the risks and benefits of cannabis for medical purposes, as well as dosage and potential interactions with other medication. It goes on to say that measures under the Cannabis Act to facilitate research with the goal of improving our knowledge of the risks and benefits of cannabis.
Well, see, now that seems like a more logical approach to me. Rather than deregulating it and saying, no, we're not writing scripts anymore. Why don't we actually dive into the research and do the research they say they need?
Well, they say that legalization will provide for a new research license and permit research activities under cultivation and processing licenses. So the government there is, allowing that. But, this is all new. And it's just unfortunate that they're screaming for this to be discontinued because it shouldn't be.
Yeah, well, it comes down to the almighty buck, as always, for the CMA, whether they can put whatever words around it they want. But we all know well and good who does research for finding out what helps people and what doesn't help people. Pharmaceutical companies are the ones that pay for that research. Pharmaceutical company is not going to pay for research on cannabis because there's no profit in it for them in the long run if everybody can grow the plant freely. So they're not going to pour the money into the research, and that's why we don't have it.
Well, some licensed producers have moved towards doing some of that, but
Yeah,
We need
now
more.
with the new regime, with licensed producers on board, perhaps we will finally get those studies that we've all been wanting to take place right here in Canada.
Hopefully. Well, let's head off to the provinces and let's check out Manitoba.
Yeah, Manitoba in particular is got some pretty stiff stuff going on.
They sure do. They've announced some fines. I was talking to Alicia about this on the Pace Radio Show last Wednesday, and they have come up with these fines, which includes over $2,500 fine if you're growing cannabis.
Yeah.
Something you're federally legally allowed to do.
And it's going to cost you over $2,500 to do it. If you consume cannabis anywhere or don't stick to the edible rules, well, you're even in bigger trouble.
Yeah, well, if you go camping and you're in a provincial park or a campground, $672 including court costs and other charges on top of that.
Yeah.
And if you're 18, you get the same fine.
Yep. Their fines in Manitoba are outrageous, over punitive to say the least, and it makes one look at legalization. How can this be legalization? We're being punished more severely after October the 16th than we are today.
Yeah. Well, the federal government has, allowing the homegrown to be allowed, but Manitoba as well as Quebec have fought that. They were against that. And the Manitoba government believes that's a good restriction to ensure that children don't have access to it.
I mean, who's running this government in Manitoba? I honestly don't know. Do they really think that restricting a plant is going to stop children from having access? People have to wrap their head around the fact that kids don't want access to your tomato plants right now. Why? Because they see them everywhere and they're a normal part of life. Once because cannabis becomes like that, they don't want your cannabis plant either.
Research has shown that when you restrict access to cannabis, that the youth have increased access to it, as it has shown here in Canada.
Yep, that's right. So normalization, the thing that everybody seems to be fearful of, is exactly the ticket to give them exactly what they're fighting about.
Yeah, well, the opposition NDP critic, he says the fine seemed more aimed at filling the government's coffers than at public safety. He says, I would say that it's highly motivated by the amount of dollars that is this current government is going to be able to get from the process of legalizing cannabis. The Pallister government has attached all kinds of fines to what is considered legal.
It's going to be met with court challenges because there is a provision within the law when fines for something on a provincial or rural level, municipal level, exceed the punitive damages for that particular act, then you can challenge that because in essence you're saying something is illegal while making the fine as such that it makes it basically illegal.
Yeah. So what do others think about this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think a lot of people are using a cruel and overly punitive.
That's right. Some experts are raising concerns about recently announced fines for people found growing cannabis following legalization in Manitoba. One group calls it overly punitive, and a legal expert says may leave the province open to a constitutional challenge.
Yeah. As I said, there is a provision for this written into the law. Provinces and municipalities just can't go willy-nilly go around placing outrageous fines for something that is actually legal within the country.
Yeah, well, David Clement, he's a North American affairs manager for the Consumers Group, Consumers Choice Center. He says, realistically, if someone violates the homegrown law, they're not really harming anybody. In theory, they may be harming themselves, but cannabis is going to be legal, so that should be out of the question. The fine doesn't match the infraction.
That's right. It has to match the infraction, and that's the bottom line. And Manitobans, I urge you all to stand up and take a stand against this because it's going to take court action in order to get change. Some Toronto-based lawyers have been speaking in on this as well, right?
Yes, they have. They've been saying that They specialize in criminal and constitutional and regulatory law, and they're also involved in the campaign for cannabis amnesty. And they said that the province is veering into sticky constitutional territory by imposing an incredible large fine. And according to the Constitution, provinces aren't allowed to legislate criminal offenses. That's left to the federal government and the criminal code.
Yeah, she's quoted here in saying, so the question is, what Manitoba is attempting to do, actually something that is not permitted to do under our Constitution, which is to create actual criminal laws. Looking at the number, that's something that is merely a fine or so punitive in nature that it constitutes the creation of a criminal offense.
That's right. Yeah, it's going to be a big fight, man. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what it comes down to. Provinces that are choosing heavy penalties and greater restrictions over and above what is allowed on a federal level, I think those provinces are going to be met with a lot of constitutional challenges.
Yeah, I think so too. Now, in Manitoba, a spokesman for the province said that in an email, the province is standing with the Canadian Associations of Chiefs of Police in banning cannabis production at home.
Of course, the cops are against it. They make too much money.
Well, they say that law enforcement would struggle to keep it off the black market, is what they're saying.
Come on. There won't be a black market if everybody can grow their own.
That's right. And big time help reduction, that's for sure.
I want it, I'll grow it, and I'll have it. I'm allowed to have it. If I'm waiting for mine to harvest, I'll go to the store and buy it. I mean, that's the whole point here, isn't it?
Yeah, well, they say it's similar to, you're not allowed to produce liquor at home. They don't consider wine and beer as liquor, okay?
But it is.
It's alcohol.
But it is. And I mean, and for actual
Some people call
alcohol,
liquor, 40%.
Yeah, but we have that already. We're allowed to have so much wine at home that we can make. I mean, hell, they even have these places you can go and you make your wine there and you leave it there and they take care of it for you while you're away. And then you go back and you put it in your bottles and you're set to go. So we have that here already for our spirits and everything. Yeah. It doesn't, the differentiation doesn't make any sense.
That spokesman goes on to say that we stand with the association on this issue, which is why we have prohibited home cultivation and set a fine that we believe will encourage Manitobans to follow the law.
Okay. Somebody's got their head in the clouds. I don't understand Manitoba government. I really don't.
Yeah. Well, according to Anna Maria, I think I got her first name right. Can't get the last name right, though. She thinks that the rule may actually lead to more cannabis on the black market. She says restrictive access leads to underground purchase and leads to a black market.
Mm-hmm. Well, more restriction, people are going to get it somewhere.
This is almost like one of those things where they say it's like, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result.
Yeah. Isn't that the definition of insanity or something?
Something like that, yeah.
Somebody better get that checked.
Well, there's a concern that it could hit marginalized communities as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, they say that there has been a concern that the fine will disproportionately fall on radicalized and marginalized groups, pertaining inequalities in the justice system under the existing laws.
Well, we know that to be fact already, right?
Yes.
There's no question that that's how that is going to go down. We see that in today's world with cannabis being illegal. That's how it plays out in communities across the country and beyond. Racial minorities and the people of color are always disproportionately targeted, and that's just a simple fact. And this new regulation in Manitoba will allow that to continue.
Yeah, well, we've gone from one province with the silly law to the next province with the silly law. And we're actually going to take a commercial break after this one.
All right. Yeah, I think we're going over to Quebec for a minute, right?
Yes, we are. What is going on in Quebec? This law is, this is even just as silly as...
This is even sillier, I think. No cannabis paraphernalia, no cannabis symbolization on clothing. T-shirts will be allowed in the province of Quebec.
Yeah, under Quebec cannabis law, retailers across the province will be banned from selling products decorated with the cannabis leaf. Like, can you imagine?
Yeah,
like,
you've got a pot shirt on, you've got a T-shirt on it, it's got a pot leaf on it. You better take that off your shelf because that is now an illegal product.
That's right. Well, they spoke to Christopher Milano. He owns a chain of smoking accessories stores in Quebec. And he says, can you imagine a customer walking in here with an innocent purchase in mind, just wanting to buy a cannabis T-shirt? And lo and behold, the place he expects to be able to get one, it won't be allowed?
Yeah. Well, and almost everything that he sells will be illegal. If it's embossed with a cannabis leaf on it, it has to be removed.
Oh, big time. Big time. And it's going to, not just his business, but any kind of that type of business in Quebec.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, think about that. How many things do we see in our everyday lives that have a cannabis leaf on it? I'm sitting in my office right now, and I can take a look on my desk right now, and I have everything. I mean, there's my bong, my coffee cup, my ashtray. Everything on my desk has a cannabis leaf on it.
Cannabis leaf on it.
Somewhere.
My notebook sitting right here that I take notes down.
My pen.
Yeah. Thank you, everything. Butterfly, by the way. Yeah.
Everything that I'm looking at on my desk has a cannabis leaf on it.
That's right. Well, under the Quebec law, logos, design, and images cannot be used on cannabis-related objects unless they are government approved.
Oh, Quebec. I don't know what to say about Quebec. I'm speechless. Quebec leaves me speechless, and that's pretty tough to do.
Well, like with the cigarettes and tobacco, it comes to public events, they can't advertise, stadiums and buildings, big things like that.
Yeah.
But this is even more restrict.
Yeah.
Than that.
This is T-shirts. This is ashtrays. This is lighters, bongs, coffee cups.
Well, according to Melanie David, who is a Montreal-based commercial and real estate lawyer, he says you cannot use your branding or your name into a public event or stadium, and that's about the alcohol. And he says that Quebec legislation is much broader, and that he believes that the Quebec regulations for now would be probably subject to interpretation in the future because there is a general prohibition to promote cannabis on any object and not necessarily in objects that pertain to the consumption of it.
Okay, so here's a question. What about all of the products that I see in health food stores, grocery stores, lotion stores, and they have a cannabis leaf on them because they're promoting the use of hemp products in their
hand
product.
Lotion.
That's right.
I've
seen it in the grocery store. I've seen it, in the Bath and Beyond, Bed Bath and Beyond, and all of these, little boutique sort of stores. Are they subject to this as well?
Okay. Well, a representative from Quebec's health ministry said that they plan to enforce the regulations, and to do so, they have 31 inspectors. And retailers who break the new rules can expect hefty fines from $5,000 to $62,500. and they can be doubled for repeat offenders. So $125,000 on your second offense of displaying a cannabis ashtray, a leaf in it. Yeah.
Oh, you've got a rack of T-shirts there.
Yeah.
You're done. That T-shirt's gonna cost you $120,000.
An advocacy group with the cannabis leaf on it.
Could you? I mean, are people leaving Quebec in droves, or is there a mass exodus, or what?
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know how you can survive in the marketplace and have any kind of cannabis associated business in the province of Quebec. Yeah, and I guess that's the whole point, though, for them, right?
That's right. That's right. They don't want the children to see it.
That's it.
That's right. Okay, Kim.
Yeah.
Well, how about we go for a break?
Yeah. After that, I definitely need a dab break.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. Well, starting today, we're going to start having 2 breaks during our broadcast. This will allow us to split up long news reports. And then today we're going to hear a bit of a CNN report on a young cannabis patient. So it's going to be split in 2. Once now and once at another break. And then we will be back after we return from Marijuanaville. You're listening to Reefer Reporters. We are live here on LifestyleRadio.net.
Hey, this is Cheech. And this is Chong. And you're listening to Lifestyle Radio. What is it? Lifestyle Radio. Say it one more time. 420 Radio? Ooh.
Hang up and try again.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
Go Landon! Go Landon!
Back in September of 2012, 3-year-old Landon Riddle developed a sore throat and swollen lymph nodes one night. It was likely just a virus, his doctors thought, but the reality ended up being much worse. Acute lymphocytic leukemia, or ALL. It's a cancer of the blood and bone marrow. It's one of the most common cancers in children. It's also one of the most treatable. But the therapy was going to be tough.
They started him on chemo, but told us that he probably wasn't going to make it, that he only had like an 8% chance to live 24 to 48 hours.
The chemo made the little boy very sick, nauseated, vomiting, barely able to walk or talk.
Good job.
His mother, Sierra, wanted to try anything to help and eventually found medical marijuana. Now again, Landon is just 3 years old. They'd come from Utah, where medical marijuana was not legal, to Colorado, where it was.
Okay, here.
And for Landon, it seemed to work. He rebounded, able to eat, sleep, just be a kid. But Sierra told us something else, something surprising. She believed that the marijuana was healing him, not just from the ravages of chemo, but from his cancer as well.
I think that chemo in combination with cannabis did put him into remission, and now cannabis will keep him there.
To be clear, ALL is one of the most curable cancers. More than 95% of children go into remission with existing therapies. But still, Sierra was so sure of marijuana's healing properties that 6 months after her son started the treatments, she decided to stop his chemotherapy altogether. Her argument, the chemo was too toxic, and the cannabis was not. She said the doctors were stunned at her decision.
The options were to either, voluntarily agree to the chemo and steroid plan for the next 3 years, or to refuse it, in which they would take us to court and have it court ordered anyways. And the possibility of them removing Landon from my care would come into play at that point.
How's it going, Landon?
So Riddle found a lawyer willing to take on the case. Attorney Warren Edson.
It didn't appear she was doing anything wrong other than just being a mom and trying to do what's in the best interest of her kid.
In an effort to avoid a court battle, Riddle, her mother Wendy, and Edson met with Landon's doctors and Child Protective Services.
They said they were willing to work with us. They said they were willing to alter the chemo plan, and they're not. They did not do that at all.
And that's not surprising. While many mainstream doctors do support the use of cannabis to offset the side effects of chemotherapy, as things stand now, no doctor would recommend cannabis instead of chemo, myself included.
Are you looking for cannabis news, education, and people's opinions? Are you looking to learn what Canadian and international cannabis advocates are doing, not only now, but what got them to this point in their lives, and what does the future hold for them? Do you want to learn how patients are using cannabis as their daily medication, or learn how their cannabis use helps them with their medical condition? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then I'm going to suggest to you to tune in to Lifestyle Radio. Catch their live weekly shows and have your questions and concerns answered and find the experience you're looking for. Monday, catch your weekly news broadcast with the Reefer Reporters. Then on Wednesday, get several hours worth of cannabis public education. We get things started with cannabis and coffee with Tamarawana. Then tune in and catch Ottawa with Russell Barth, who calls himself the world's angriest pothead. Finish up your evening with the award-winning Pace Radio Show with Al Graham and joint host Kim Cooper and Alicia Yashishin. No week would be complete without tuning into Friday night's program, the 420 Radio Show featuring Al Rapp and the 420 Radio crew, Mary Jane Baker and Marcel Gagnac. Cannabis is a lifestyle, and you can catch all your cannabis lifestyle information right here at lifestyleradio.net or at our sister site, 420radio.ca.
Using my tweezers, got pot in the freezer, whoa! Made a new pipe out of aluminum foil. We stayed away again in Marijuanaville, searching for my roach clip on a rope.
Okay, we're back. We got some medication into us, and it's time to get right back at her, Kim.
Yep, sounds good. We're going to start off in BC.
That's right. You know, us here in Ontario, we're in a situation where we won't have any cannabis stores to go to come October the 17th, as far as like any legal stores. What's it going to be like in British Columbia?
Well, British Columbia are pretty bitter at the moment because apparently for all of BC, they will have one location ready on October the 17th. So they're pretty unhappy over there about the entire situation, given the fact that there's so many current dispensaries that are legally operating that will be forced to close their doors on that day and not be open to the public. So they're having a hard time swallowing this. I feel bad for them, but we won't have any.
Yeah, I know. They got more than we do.
That's it.
The BC government has said that the opening of the new cannabis stores won't happen overnight. And on October 17th, when the Federal Cannabis Act comes into force, but a survey of local governments and cannabis consultants reveals that it may actually take up to 18 months before potential operators have trudged through the rigorous process of municipal zoning, community consultation, and approval for their stores. 18 months. We're talking here in Ontario like till April.
Yeah. Yeah, they say they'll be ready in April here in Ontario, but 18 months in a province that currently has an existing regime going on that is supplying the product that they're attempting to sell legally. How can it take longer to be ready?
Yeah, exactly. It just doesn't make sense. They say with a month left until legalization, only the online platform, which is similar to here in Ontario, and a single government store in Kamloops are confirmed.
Kamloops, you're the lucky winners in Kamloops. If you're outside of Kamloops, you're pretty much screwed, the same as Ontario. It's astonishing to me. I mean, Ontario is the largest province in Canada. BC is the most advanced province as far as cannabis laws go because they currently have an existing system going on with licensed sellers.
Well, Vancouver and Victoria.
Yeah, within the walls of BC, right?
Yeah.
So how can these two places not be ready?
Well, apparently they're not. And they say that in the meantime, there are more than 100 private store applications have been submitted to the province, which must be vetted by local governments in order to create these stores. And none of the applications are expected to be processed before October the 17th. And that doesn't. And then you got to still build the stores, stock them, and staff them.
Yeah. You got to build them, and stock them and stuff them. And then they're going to complain all the way, of course, that the so-called gray market will still exist.
Yeah. Well, a lot of the people, a lot of the companies, they're being told to expect private stores in BC to start opening as soon as January 2019 in some places, but as late as spring as 2020 in others due to the lengthy process.
18 months. 18 months. And a lot of these other places, they are places that currently have existing stores.
That's right. Yeah. You know, what's going to happen there? And they also go on here to say that because of the elections that they're going to have in the province, more than half of the mayors aren't running, seeking re-election. So, you know, how's that going to change the outlook on things as well?
Yeah. I mean, everything is in turmoil. We've got legalization happening on the back of major elections that are going down in different municipalities from coast to coast to coast. Mm-hmm. So it's election time for provincial and municipal elections. This is really throwing a wrench into things, trying to bring systems into different regions with new heads taking over the system that maybe already started or maybe is waiting for them to start.
Yeah, well, talking about start, the BC government introduced legislation back in April. The province only began accepting applications for these places halfway through August. When they were asked this week whether any applications had been sent to local governments for review, the ministry spokesman, Liam Butler, said that the government was unable to comment on the process.
Yeah. It's because nothing's been done yet. They've got no comment because they've got nothing to comment on. They're just simply not ready, and I don't know how they could not be ready. This has been on the table for 2.5 years. Yeah, really, I know it has been. I see the Public Safety General Manager in Surrey. He said governments won't receive provincial applications for review until they have their own retail framework sorted out. Everybody's waiting for the next guy and the next guy and the next guy. And the first guy, when you get to the head of that line, he's saying, well, I'm going to wait and see what happens over there. Yeah. And they look at the province behind them.
Yeah, even Vancouver, they don't know whether any stores will be open on October 17th.
I mean, how can there be no stores in Vancouver? Could you imagine that?
Yeah. Well,
legalization comes and downtown Vancouver will have no stores. How the hell would that work?
They say that they haven't received any applications for approval from the province. So, it's all sitting at the province, waiting to come down to the municipalities.
Yeah. And some of these places, they're...
Well, Vancouver, the city of Vancouver has issued development permits for 52 private stores in the city and business licenses for 19 of them. But they still need to get provincial retail licenses before they can operate. So the city's done some work, obviously, but it's the province.
Yeah.
I thought they had an NDP government that was all favorable for, like, NDP governments are usually favorable towards cannabis.
Yeah, but it's the rigid application process that you have to go through. They're making some of these people jump through so many hoops that it winds up looking nothing like what they expected to start with. And a lot of the grassroots people that have been out there for a long time operating the dispensaries that are attempting to get in on the legal market and transition over, they're looking at this whole procedure and going, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah, in Burnaby, council there is going to look at approving government stores before allowing any private stores.
Yeah. And then comes down to the question of the government-run stores. Are they going to have enough product?
Yeah. Well, they're getting them all from the same place.
Yeah. Are they going to have enough product?
I don't know.
Big question.
But yeah, in Burnaby, they say that the residents are either going to have to go to a neighboring municipality that has it established or rely on online sales. They won't be able to get it there in October.
No. And just much like a lot of other places that in Canada as a whole.
Yeah. They go on about other districts, other areas here, and it doesn't sound like you would think they'd be a little more prepared, but obviously...
We're talking about BC.
Yeah.
I mean, it's known worldwide as the cannabis capital of Canada, right? And they're looking at 18 months. Astonishing.
Yeah.
Astonishing.
18 months.
Astonishing.
Yeah.
A lot of astonishing things going on in Vancouver and in BC, eh?
Yes, there is. And this one is very, very disappointing.
Yeah, this is bad. This is unbelievably heart-wrenching. Vancouver, as we know, has a great problem with opiate addiction, homelessness, and people living on the streets and suffering from addiction. There's a great group of people that are out there that are helping out, the Overdose Prevention Society. And the director of that society is a lady that we know and love, Sarah Blythe. She operates a cannabis for substitution program for those that want to use cannabis to get off opiates. And she's operated openly in Vancouver's lower side, east side there, for over a year. Police are very well known to know what she's doing and who she is and why she's there and her intentions and what she's doing with the cannabis distribution. But they just got raided.
That's right. Well, she says that she called the police raid totally disgusting, noting that this cannabis is being used by people with long-term injuries. Users include seniors in pain and those who can only get around with the help of wheelchairs. But that's not a concern, according to the police. Yeah.
According to the police, they were unconcerned. I'm going to read a quote from here. Blythe said it was totally disgusting. People were crying when they left, including myself, because it's really the only thing we have for folks in the downtown east side. People are living in alleyways. How can we expect them not to have anything? Some people can't just go from opiates to nothing. Like, that's impossible. And we all know that to be true. When you're trying to come off of opiates, you cannot just stop. It doesn't work that way. You need something to get you through it. And cannabis is helping these people stay away from harmful opiates, get off stuff like fentanyl, heroin, and other opiate-related drugs.
You know, I know when this story broke, I looked at it as like the police are preventing people from saving lives, which just doesn't make sense to me. But when you read this report, you got to wonder, why are they doing this? It says in the most recent annual report, the Overdose Prevention Society recorded 175,000 visits and dealt with 417 overdoses on site. They administered Naxalone on 397 occasions, and there were 153 calls to 911. There was no deaths in all of that because of the Overdose Prevention Society.
That's right. Yeah, the Overdose Prevention Society are saving lives. And the Vancouver Police Department chose this operation to raid. They went in, they confiscated the cannabis, they confiscated the medical candies that were there and the edible products that were there that were going to help all of these people get off of their opiate addiction. Just down the street, just across the street, you have unlicensed and unregulated dispensaries operating openly. Why go to the Overdose Prevention Society?
And some people say, well, they're just, they're just trying to sell their cannabis to these people who are on drugs. Well, look at the organization. The organization alone has won awards from the Vancouver Fire and Rescue Services, BC Civil Liberties Association, and the BC Centre for Substance Abuse, as well as a 2018 Mayor's Achievement Award. Does that sound like just some guys in the backyard doing something?
Yeah, exactly. The operation that Sarah runs down there is amazing. She takes care of so many people. It's branching out and going further into other areas. There's other segments of this that are popping up, and people that are taking this on, and they're branching out. They're spreading all over the place, and they're saving lives. Why, oh, why would they do this to her? And then they went back.
Yeah, they did. They did go back. But first, I just thought I mentioned that even the former health minister of BC has suggested that cannabis can help people with opiate addiction, and he wasn't happy with this. But yeah, they went back, and now they are threatening the organizers with trafficking charges.
Yeah. I actually had an opportunity to view a video that somebody took when the police returned the second time, and they actually called Sarah out on the street and said, you said somebody was selling fentanyl. Who's selling the fentanyl? Sarah, point him out to us right now. And yelled that out on the street in front of the Overdose Prevention Society. If a fentanyl dealer thought that Sarah Blythe was speaking in this manner to police department, that could put her life at risk.
Yeah, that's not very good of them at all whatsoever doing that.
No, they went back, they threatened her, they told her they were coming back and laying charges, and then they harassed her on the street. The conduct of these officers is appalling, and I hope that the people that are their bosses, their superiors, hold them accountable and do something about this, because this is just ridiculous.
Well, in a statement, Vancouver police said the cannabis, still an illegal substance, was in plain view at the market and was seized for destruction. Although our officers tried to identify the owner of the cannabis products being openly sold, no one took responsibility for it. This removed the opportunity for our officers to collect enough information from which they could base their next course of action on.
No, they knew the information they were basing their course of action on. If anybody took ownership of that, that would have just brought forth charges against that particular person, because now they're placing ownership on it. If you stand up and say it's mine, well, now you're going to jail because you own the property and you openly admitted to that. So, of course, nobody's going to stand up and take ownership of that. They knew who it belonged to because they were in front of the Overdose Prevention Society's offices, where they are every day doing what they do, and the police officers are well aware of who they are and the people that run that society. So that's a bunch of bullshit.
Well, the police went on to say that we do not want anyone trafficking drugs in the market. We have seen this type of trafficking of cannabis in other parts of Vancouver and have taken enforcement action after informal attempts to solve the issue were not successful. Selling cannabis in this manner is illegal now and will continue to be illegal after cannabis is decriminalized in October.
Well, I call out to Vancouver Fire and Rescue Services, BC Civil Liberties Association, the BC Centre for Substance Abuse, as well as the Mayor's Achievement Award Committee to call on the Vancouver Police Department and let them know what they've done to this award-winning person in the community. Sarah won accolades and awards from all of those previously mentioned people, as you said earlier in the show, Al. And they need to stand up for her. Stop giving her awards and do something and stand up for what this woman is doing. Stand up to the Vancouver Police Department and make them stop the harassment against Sarah.
Well, like she asked, this should not be a priority in the middle of a crisis.
That's right.
Which is right. And as I mentioned earlier, the former health minister, Terry Lake, got involved. And he says, I was really disappointed. In the past, Vancouver police have been very respectful and cooperative with the efforts to fight the opioid crisis in Vancouver. They've been thoughtful about the way they managed the opioid response with the prevention center even before it was official. And then with this cannabis replacement program, which is to help people manage through the opioid crisis, they've been respectful until now. Quite surprising and disappointing.
Extremely disappointing, to say the least. The direction of the Vancouver Police Department in this particular instance is appalling, and I encourage everybody to let them know that that's how they feel about this. Reach out through the Vancouver Police Department, local mayor's office, or through your social media outlets, as millions of people have apparently already done as well.
Yeah, exactly. And this Mr. Lake, he's right in here. He says this isn't just the letter of the law. It helps people and keeping people alive so they can actually find some help. I think it's broken some of the trust that's developed over these last few years. And I hope this doesn't happen, but I'm concerned that it will happen.
Yeah, well, sticky situation for downtown East Side, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, the Canadian Drug Policy Coalition, according to Don McPherson, shares Mr. Lake's concerns. They're saying that we're really desperate in BC to find any small intervention that can help the situation, and a policing intervention like that is not one of the things that helps. I hope it's a tempest in a teapot here and not a shift in policy for the Vancouver Police Department, because we all have to be working together on this.
Yeah, and it's appalling. It's just appalling. Donald McPherson has been speaking out on this with the Canadian Drug Policy Coalition, and he's a great guy too. I really like Donald. Hopefully his words will be heeded.
Yeah, hopefully. Okay, let's get into this. Get this one done, and we'll go for another commercial break.
Sounds good. We're going from BC to Ottawa, right?
Yes, as we cover across different cities across our country. Yes, that's where Ottawa police won't be using the roadside saliva test for cannabis checks.
The nation's capital is choosing to opt out.
That's right. The Ottawa police will not be using the recently approved roadside saliva test to detect cannabis impairment. And they say because practical factors severely limit their ability to use this device, but they are going to be monitoring to see what happens in the other cities.
And that's pretty much what I said on the earlier thing. Let's see what these guys do over here first, and then we'll decide, right, when it gets to the top. And that's why nothing's getting done. This is hilarious to me. Ottawa is Canada's capital, and the Draeger 5000 is said to be the one unit that's going to, stop all of the people getting high and driving. If the nation's capital finds it cost preventative and issues with climate, then how can the rest of the country rely on it?
Yeah, well, they say that the cost is perspective that they're $6,000 each.
Yeah.
And there's an issue around keeping the swabs at a right temperature, because we know that is a problem. Yeah. And I think each test is $20.
Yeah, that's right. Each test is $20, so they have to be kept on the inside of the officer's cruiser. You can't take them out and walk up to the person's car and get them to do it. You have to bring the person into the officer's cruiser, put them in the back, get them warm, and then use it. And if it doesn't work, you've got to open another one and do it again. So, and every test can take, 20 minutes or something. So you can be on the side of the road and wind up with 3 tests done at the cost of $60, and it's now taking you 3 hours at the side of the road to figure out whether or not you smoked a joint.
That's right. And they go on to say that once they buy one, they have to equip a police car. They said they have to buy one for each police car.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the machine has to be available in all the cruisers, and then it has to be equipped with the mouth swabs in all the cruisers.
So instead, they said the police has invested in doubling the number of DREs, which is drug recognition experts. They're up to 24 right now.
And we all know how reliable they are.
They say that nearly half of the Ottawa police officers, that's 246 people, are trained in the standard field sobriety test. Okay, that's just the standard one. That's not the big one where they have to send you down to the States, and it costs $5,000, I believe, for each officer to do that. And, Ottawa's not the only place. There's other places as well that have looked at this and said, I think we're going to wait. And that includes Peterborough, right near me. They're doing the same thing.
Yeah, so far Northern Ontario has stayed silent. Nobody's talking about legalization or getting ready for it. Or there's been no talk in town council about it. There's no increase in the police budget for it. There's no communication with the general public at all in Northern Ontario. I think we're just waiting and going to watch and see what everybody else does.
Yeah, well, according to them, they have those 24 DRE officers, so they're going to split them among 6 platoons to ensure that there's 2 or 3 of them on duty at any given time. That way they can always use them, eh?
Yeah, and what if they're busy?
Well, 2 or 3, they must have yeah, well, they're going to be busy if it's only going to be at 5 nanograms.
That's right. I mean, you're testing at 5 nanograms. These roadside tests can take 45 minutes or more before the officer is released and can go on to the next one. Yeah. How many police officers, when you've got somebody there with, like the radar gun, say, at a speed trap, how many cars do they pull over in an hour? You've got 3 speed traps set up. You got a lineup of cars waiting to be tested before they can be released because there's only 3 officers trying to run around. I mean, how is the logistics won't work?
Overwhelmed. They're going to have too much.
Yeah.
Well, according to one of their drug recognition experts, they say that the process involves 12 steps, including tests for cognitive speech therapy and physical symptoms of impairment, which includes they'll be taking blood pressure, they'll be checking your heart rate, they're going to check your body temperature, because drugs, not just THC, have 7 categories of drugs. They play with your neurotransmitters, they say, and they actually do a lot to the body. And if someone does poorly on those tests, police will demand a blood or urine sample under the criminal code to determine their level of intoxication.
But you know what?
Yeah.
You know what the big problem with all of this is? Blood pressure medication that has no, imperative effects also change all of those things. Heart medication changes the rhythm of your heart. There's a host of non-euphoric medication that people take every day that will show readings that these people are looking for.
Yeah, well, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I know that, there's people out there that are probably going to end up getting arrested, and let's hope that the laws get shot down because, as you and I, we had guests on the Pace Radio show, they wake up at 35 nanograms every morning.
Yeah, that's right.
And with a limit of 5.
Waking up and you can't drive your car when you get out of bed in the morning, then we have a problem.
That's right. And we sure do. Okay, Kim, it's time for us to take a break and to medicate again.
Sounds good.
All right, and we're going to hear some more about Landon, the young cannabis patient, and then Kim and I will be right back after a session and more of Marijuanaville. All right.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Kim.
I was just going to say it's a really good time for a session after discussing what some of the people in our provinces are going to have to go through in the future.
Well, yeah, and what some of these laws are, coming around from. It's just...
Yeah, I mean, Ontario is not a great place to be. A lot of provinces are not real great places to be these days.
No.
Legalization 2018.
Oh, yeah, I know. It's just going to be interesting to see what happens. Like you say, the courts, police officers are going to be swamped. Courts are going to be swamped if they're grabbing everybody, and that's what some people are concerned about. That they're going to be out there looking for everybody and anybody.
Yep, exactly. And other people are actually, proposing that proposing, people light up basically everywhere, push the envelope, take the fine and take it to court, flood the system, and show the courts how ludicrous all of this is by flooding the system.
Yeah. And I know that's been part of the problem in the past when it came to the cannabis laws. It was overflowing the system. A lot of people were getting arrested, and people who were committing murder were actually getting off on charges because their rights were violated.
Yeah, that's right. And legalization is supposed to alleviate that, not increase it. And this new regime that we're facing in Canada, everybody's jumping for joy. It's going to be legal. When you look at the rules, is it legal?
Yes and no. We're just hanging in the middle. Well, Kim, let's take that break. We'll discuss it during the break. Okay, you're listening to the Reefer Reporters. We are live here on LifestyleRadio.net.
So what are you doing? Nothing? Why not?
Trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, wait, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
But there is a growing body of promising research. Dr. Julie Holland is the editor of the Pot Book.
It turns out it actually fights the cancer itself.
You're a doc. You've studied this. You've talked to the researchers. You're saying marijuana can kill cancer cells.
I'm saying that, and there are many other researchers who are saying that too.
We've got lung samples from our treated mice.
Like San Francisco researchers Pierre Desprez and Sean McAllister, who say they've seen firsthand what the cannabis compound cannabidiol, or CBD, can do. In their lab, they used CBD to kill mice and human cancer cells. We asked the American Cancer Society what they thought about all of this. And in a statement to CNN, they said, there is no available scientific evidence from controlled studies in humans that cannabinoids can cure or treat cancer. Even Landon's doctor, who prescribed his marijuana and is a firm believer in medical cannabis, is cautious about this.
Sierra has decided to stop the chemotherapy for Landon. I mean, as a doctor, and as a doctor who's seen his progress, is that something you would be on board with, that you'd recommend?
As a physician, again, I'm not sure that I could recommend that to a parent to say, I can't say to them, I know that the CBD is a treatment that can work and you don't need the chemotherapy.
For the time being, Sierra Riddle is afraid of losing her son, so she is allowing chemotherapy once a month. She's also still trying to find an oncologist willing to take Landon off the chemo. So far, she's had no luck.
Faster.
But Sierra and her mother aren't giving up.
I want Landon to know that we did everything in our power to be compassionate in his care and to protect him. I want him to know that we were willing to go to bat. He's a 3-year-old child.
We did reach out to Children's Hospital a number of times, and so far they've declined to discuss Landon's care. And meanwhile, Riddle says she and his doctors they're still at odds over his treatment, but they point out it's been 9 months since he's had significant chemotherapy treatments, and he remains cancer-free.
Tune in to DJ Passion from the land of Ganja, the island of Jamaica, when he comes to you live every Saturday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, here on LifestyleRadio.net. Listen in until midnight every weekend as he spins your favorite reggae tunes, including the classics, from Butterfly's Passion, Bed and Breakfast Above Discovery Bay. DJ Passion makes you feel like you are on the island. Head to the land of sun, fun, and Ganja weekly when you tune in Saturday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to Reggae Saturday with DJ Passion, live here on LifestyleRadio.net.
Blew out my bong pipe, ran out of Bud Light, but I found some stash I had hidden at home. Put it into a blender, and soon it will render these little fudge brownies that help me get stoned. Wasted away again in Marijuanaville. Come on, you guys.
Hey, we're back from our break and our medication session. It's now time for Northern Ontario Kim Cooper and I to get right back in the news. Well, Kim, I don't know about you, but those brownies sure sounded good.
They sure did. When you shipping me some up?
When I go to Marijuanaville.
I accept mail order. Yeah. Marijuanaville, it would be nice. He's not in our news part tonight, but they're talking about doing some Marijuanaville places down in California, so it was an appropriate intro today.
That's right, and maybe Belleville is going to be known as Marijuanaville, as Belleville has just been home, or actually the home of a Sears distribution center has now become the home of a cannabis producer.
Yeah, Sears Distribution Center, the big bastard that's over there in Belleville, just north of Shannonville there, Thayendanegea territory with our friends that we love down there. A huge warehouse that is now sitting empty since Sears went bankrupt, and cannabis company has purchased it up. 500,000 square feet, or about 1/4 of the site of the Hexpo Corp, a company that manufactures high-end cannabis-based products.
Yeah, the city has been working with a group since May, and she says that there has also been lots of discussion and opportunity for other groups to lease the remaining 15 million square feet.
Yeah.
I don't see a dot in there.
No, there is no dot. It's not 1.5. It is 15 million square feet still available after the 500,000 square feet has already been designated for cannabis grow sort of storage area and production area. So it'll be interesting to see how the rest of that property develops now that cannabis has moved into a good portion of it.
Well, just so you know, I'm not far from this place, and I was down there this past week in that area. It's a massive building. It's got a huge amount of shipping docks on it. It is huge. Yeah. So, while the Bay of Quinte MPP Todd Smith says that HECO, who's the company involved in this, that will bring about 250 jobs to the area, with about 1/3 of them being over $50,000 a year jobs.
Oh, well, it's not too bad. At least it's a living wage, right? You're not talking about little bits of change on the ground here. It's a fairly good living wage. People can afford to survive on that. So he adds that there is a potential for more jobs, and there's a joint venture agreement with Molson and Coors to produce cannabis beverages in the future as well.
Yeah. Well, it still has to go before City Council for approval for rezoning. And I know, because of being involved in the area there have been some people that have wanted to open a lounge and stuff like that in Belleville. And the city put a bylaw in to stop cannabis businesses from operating in the city. So
how did they get around that?
Well, see, City Council hasn't approved it yet. For the rezoning end of things. So
now that may put new light on City Council's decision on that, because if they allow one cannabis-related business, they have to allow them all. They can't outlaw lounges and allow the main hub of Belleville bringing in all of the money to be a cannabis-related business.
I can see them revising that bylaw because the city manager of economic development was involved in this. So I can see that coming down the road. If there is a prohibition on that stuff, they'll be changing it.
Yeah, absolutely. So good news for other independent shop owners and that around the area. Perhaps there's light at the end of the tunnel for the Belleville area to see other enterprises pop up that mom and pop shops can operate.
We'll see. I'm not too what's the word I'm looking for? Optimistic that that's going to happen. I can just see them revising it to allow this type of business versus a small business.
Yeah. You never know with City Council, but perhaps some time to rally the troops and get people to let them know that this is what they want.
That's right. Well, that's exactly. as we're saying, we see lineups at those cannabis craft events. And
that's right. You have to line up and let city council know that that's what you want, because otherwise they don't hear you, and they definitely hear the opposition.
That's right. Well, it might take some stick handling to get around the issues, but somebody might be able to get at it. And talking about stick handling.
Yeah, Riley Cote is in the news. He is, of course, a great Canadian hockey player, known as an enforcer on the ice, and he's now speaking up about cannabis.
Yep, he's a retired NHL enforcer, and he's asking hockey players to drop their alcohol and opiates so they can start consuming cannabis. He says it's changing the conversation when it comes to the recovery process. And there's been a lot of, I know in the past there was discussions of a substance abuse within the NHL ranks. So.
Yeah, within the NHL ranks, as well as the football league as well. That's been all in the news as well with them. Players are saying, we're tired of doctors feeding us all of these dangerous opiates to help our pain. Hockey is a tough sport. There's a lot of injury in hockey, and the go-to substance for all the doctors are opiates.
Yeah.
And the players are taking a stand. They're saying no.
Yeah, well, Cote says that traditionally, especially in sports, it's always been a destructive substance like alcohol or opiates or sleeping pills. And he says that I'm all about increasing quality of life and giving guys an alternative to traditional protocols.
Yeah. I mean, the NHL is ridden with former players that suffer from problems with addiction and stuff. And it largely starts with the doctors keeping them under pain control to get them back on the ice.
Yeah, well, he was in Markham in the Toronto area recently, where he was speaking to a group of NHL alumni about this issue and about cannabis, which is something which is very good to see for them to speak up and to try to make change.
Yeah, I loved Cote when he was on the ice. He used to play for the Philadelphia Flyers. I still have my Flyers T-shirt from when Cote was on the team. He told the audience he suffered from a long list of injuries during his career, including concussions, and it definitely takes its toll.
Yeah, well, throughout his career, he says that he smoked cannabis to lower his anxiety and help him sleep the night before game days. And by doing so, he was breaking the law and league rules.
Yeah. But he did it, and now that he's no longer on the ice, he's speaking up and he's letting other players know, like, hey, you need to take a stand against this because the opiates are killing us.
Yeah, exactly. Well, he says that, actually he doesn't say, but the players are tested for the drug, and if they come up positive for a cannabis test, it doesn't necessarily mean that things are going to lead to a suspension of the player.
Yeah,
and
if it's just by
NHL's
itself.
Yeah, NHL says they're not going to change anything with legalization here in Canada.
Yeah. I think that will change. I mean, even our military is changing the rules when it comes to cannabis because of legalization. The NHL's approach saying they're not going to change anything is ludicrous. When you have a legalized substance here, you can't tell somebody that they can test positive for that and then lose their position or become suspended, especially with today's testing regime that we have. So that eventually, I think, will change, especially with players like Cote that are taking a stand and standing up.
Well, he's not the only one speaking up. Steve Ludzik, he played 7 years with the Chicago Blackhawks, and after he retired from the game, he developed Parkinson's disease. And he was involved in that discussion in the Toronto area, and he said he suffered from insomnia and the symptoms of Parkinson's, and so he drank.
Yeah, he turned to alcohol, as many players do. It's some sort of a substance abuse always exists because they're trying to alleviate the symptoms.
Yeah, he says, but 2 years ago he tried cannabis for the first time and has been using it ever since to get to sleep. He says it was remarkable. It's a lot easier on your body than alcohol.
That is for sure. So now Cote is taking his cannabis message and to retired hockey players who aren't constrained by the drug policies covering the current players. But ultimately, he'd like to see those policies change and cannabis take the place of other painkillers used by hockey players.
Yeah, it's good to see. Good to see them speaking up and doing this.
Yeah, it is for sure. Hats off to Cote for sure.
Yeah, and just has to spread across to other sports as well.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, now we've got 2 more stories to go, Kim.
Yeah, and from hockey to Coca-Cola.
Hockey to Coca-Cola. This is CBD Coca-Cola. That's right. The Coca-Cola is in serious talks with the Aurora Cannabis to develop a cannabis-infused beverage.
Yeah, they say unlike other deals between alcohol makers and cannabis producers aimed at making drinks that will give consumer a buzz, similar to inhaling marijuana, Coca-Cola and Aurora are partnering up, and they would like to develop beverages that will ease inflammation, pain, and cramping.
Okay, hang on here. Coca-Cola. Relief, pain, cramping, inflammation. I just don't see that. Now, okay, I'm a guy with bowel issues, okay? And I can just see my bowel exploding in pain because unless this drink's not carbonated.
I don't know. Are they just adding CBD to Coke? Is that what they're planning on here? It doesn't really get into specifics, but I mean, it sounds to me that would be the idea. They're just making another pop, but they're going to infuse it with CBD instead of THC. I mean, the pop is killing your stomach, so let's add some CBD, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Help with recovery. Now it says, Coca-Cola, but is it the company of Coca-Cola? Because Coca-Cola has other drinks, and they have tea,
and they have water, and they have everything. They have
what's like Gatorade and stuff? Could they be adding CBD to Gatorade so you get CBDs and electrolytes?
It could be, but I mean, I don't know. I go by kind of the wording in the article. They don't necessarily say the Coca-Cola company. They actually state Coca-Cola.
But they also say here that it's going to be more of a recovery drink category. Which is why it leads me to that question about
the electrolyte booster drinks, such as Gatorade and so forth, whichever one it is that they manufacture. It very well could be. We'll have to wait and see. But either way, we're looking at Coca-Cola getting into the CBD drink market.
Yeah, they say that they aren't the only ones. There's others that are looking at doing this as well.
Yeah, so emerging marketplaces, and it seems that all of the big corps are all over it.
Yes, yeah, big time.
Yeah,
big time. Yeah, it's all happening.
It is.
But the thing is, I guess if you could look at it another way is that Coca-Cola has got to be one of the largest companies.
Yeah.
That are out there, other than maybe Google and Microsoft and stuff like that. And if they're going to do that, then, does that help eliminate some of the stigma?
Well, for sure. But I find it funny that, they're talking about discussions and development of these products in these big corporations and stuff. I was in Tyendinaga territory not too long ago, and in the Legacy 420 dispensary there, I purchased a CBD-infused water. I purchased a THC-infused pop.
Yeah.
And I also got a THC/CBD-infused iced tea while I was there, all bottled nicely and packaged with labeling on it to tell me what was inside it and everything else. So the products kind of already exist in the craft marketplace already. So they're not really developing them. They're kind of just riding on the back of what's already available in the market today.
It's already happening, correct. There's lots of places that sell cannabis-infused colas, and all I have to do is drive 45 minutes south of me to the reserve, and I'll be able to pick one up.
Yeah. So they're already out there.
And they're manufactured right there.
Yep. So I find it kind of funny.
All right, Kim, on to our last story of the day.
Yes, the last one of the day. We're going to zip on down to the States for a few minutes and talk about some of our New York friends.
Well, yeah, and this story is similar to what has been discussed here in Canada.
Yeah, lots.
That's right, but we haven't got an answer yet.
No, nobody in our government is speaking up, but the Manhattan DA certainly has. More than 3,000 cases of regarding cannabis smoking and possession were dismissed last week on Wednesday. The latest example of New York City officials relaxing the cannabis enforcement policy there.
Yeah, some of these, including some that date back as far as 1978, do not include those for violent crimes. And they say that outstanding warrants for those low-level cases drive law enforcement and other communities apart. New Yorkers with warrants face unnecessary loss of employment, housing, and immigration consequences. And because many of them fear they will be arrested for an open warrant, they don't cooperate with the police department and district attorneys to keep our community safe.
That's right. Well, if you're in a crowd and you know you've got an existing cannabis warrant out for your arrest and you saw a murder, would you speak up? Of course not. You don't want to go to jail for some ludicrous charge that took place in 1978. It's a reasonable response to the situation and the evolving cannabis laws that are happening in that state and that jurisdiction right now. Manhattan DA definitely took a big step in the right direction.
Yeah, well, criminal court judge Kevin McGrath granted the dismissal and said that the cases would be sealed in 90 days. Only 90 days. This isn't going on for a year conversation. This is just for 90 days. And the 90-day period allows administration the time to file the proper paperwork.
Yeah, but at least they're moving on it. The district attorney's office will now give public defender agencies the names of those whose bench warrants were just dismissed so people can find out if their cases were those among those that were dismissed.
Yeah, the latest example include New Yorkers found smoking cannabis in public are no longer subject to arrest, and instead offenders are now issued a summons.
Yeah.
They say that the new policy will reduce the number of arrests in the city by 10,000 per year.
Yeah. As of August 1st, the district attorney's office no longer prosecutes marijuana possession and smoking cases, Vance said. It only does so if there was the sale of the drug or a greater public safety risk involved, such as violent crime.
Yeah, well, they say when you look at the cohort of individuals who are charged with cannabis offenses, as they did in 2017, 5,000 cases that were prosecuted in 2017, only about 200 of those individuals had prior convictions.
Yeah, and the race card is always in there. There is always a massive disproportion of people of color and of different ethnic backgrounds being charged. A 6-month national study published by Vance's office in May revealed that blacks and Hispanics are prosecuted at far higher rates than predominantly white communities. And that was largely the reason for the steps that were taken in this initiative.
Yeah, they said that the ratio of men and women of color to white individuals prosecuted for this crime in Manhattan was 15-1.
Imagine.
Wow.
Imagine 15-1.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just ludicrous. The end of this story kind of brings us full circle to what we talked about at the beginning. Other marginalized communities will be charged currently in the new regime in Canada at a higher rate than unmarginalized communities will with legalization. I'm happy to see the DA in Manhattan taking the appropriate steps to try and prevent that from happening there.
Yeah, that's good to see. Good to see. And they're acting on it quickly, not waiting like we're dealing with. Okay, Kim. Well, that's our Reefer Report.
Yeah, another week in the bag.
That's right. Okay, in closing, we'd like to say thank you for listening. And if you enjoyed it, please share it with your coworkers, the person behind you in the grocery line, and those who need to know. Until the next time, don't forget to educate, medicate, and do not incarcerate.
Bark at you later.
So what are you doing? Nothing? Why not?
Trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, wait, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
The opinions expressed during this show are those of the individual participants and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of their associated organizations or Lifestyle Radio.